All right, everyone. We are here with Chris Derrick, Whitetail Product Manager from Sitka Gear. Sir, how are we doing today?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, you're welcome, man. Look, he's got this sweet setup too. We were just mentioning before we started recording here. He's got the sweet woodworking sign there with the logo of the turkey fan. He's in it.
He's ready. He's set.
He's
He's
set.
accomplished.
And then that lovely voice that you're hearing, if you're not watching on YouTube, is the one and only Andrew McClure, pro staff member right here at Vance Outdoors, and pun intended, Sitka fanatic.
Yeah, to my downfall sometimes.
He gives me crap
I'll
every
just
day.
sit back and you do everything. I'll nod my head.
There you go. This would be a quiz. We could say, how much does Andrew truly know? And then if Chris is like shaking his head, we're like, oh, sorry, man. You just he asked us the whole time.
I'm not claiming anything. It's just I enjoy the product.
He enjoys the product a lot. Yep. And then the one and only Mr. Ben Johnson is here as well.
Yep.
The man behind the switches.
Like always, I'm here.
He's here, buddy. All right. Well, Chris, let's go ahead and let's get an introduction to who you are. I know you're kind of a hard guy to find on social media a little bit. You're on the YouTube side with that, but there's really not the 10,000 followers and all that stuff that a lot of these guys get. So you're kind of the man behind the scene, if you will. Let's go ahead and dive into who Chris Derrick is and kind of how you got your start doing what you do.
Yeah, I don't do a whole lot of posting. It's the nature of my job. I'm actually always wearing something in the field, so it's kind of a pain in the rear to like shoot it out of the shot. And I don't spend a whole lot of time on social media posting. But yeah, I've been with Sitka Gear for quite some time. Came out here as that we operate in like a big game waterfowl, whitetail setup and every day. And so I'm in charge of anything that has to do with whitetail or turkey. Those are the product lines that I currently work on. And so, I've been here for quite some time. Always been fortunate enough to be able to. My wife asked me at one point if you could work anywhere where you work, and I was like, oh, I guess Sitka. And then she went on and found the posting that I actually had at the time. She was like, this sounds like what you do, and I was like, oh. So reached out to him, and that's how I came on board.
That's awesome, man. So he's a turkey guy too, man. I didn't know that.
Dream.
So I believe we have an order in for some of the vests and stuff too, which we'll have to link up again when we get closer to turkey season. We can talk about some of the new products that you guys released this year with the the insect guard and insect repellent and all that stuff. That was definitely game changing. So we'll have to reach back out to him. And talk
The vest was great.
Turkey talk. Did you use it this year?
Yeah, I ran it this year.
Yeah,
It was great, comfortable, convenient, and organized.
Which one did you go with? Which
The subalpine.
the subalpine?
Yeah,
Because it was subalpine. What is it? The timber?
I think.
Timber.
Okay. Yeah, which I mean both are great. I think we're going to probably end up going timber if I'm not mistaken. I think that's what Ed mentioned, but then again, don't quote me on that. But well, cool, man. I know we had reached out to you. We had a mutual connection there with Bo. So obviously Bo's a huge ambassador for Sitka and the Sitka brand, and we had him on the podcast. And shout out Bo if you're listening. He's probably not. He's probably on some crazy hunt like he always is. But he was able to set us up, and I was really surprised. Took one email, and Chris emailed me right back. I'm like, oh, that's awesome, man. So shout out Bo for hooking us up. But let's get into some of the whitetail stuff. So I know, we're here in Central Ohio. This is whitetail. I won't say Mecca, but it's definitely one of the hot spots for whitetail in the country. And we have a lot of whitetail hunters, and we're Sitka dealer. So we have all the product here, or we can get all the product here that we're going to talk about today. But I think for me especially, let's dive into. Do you want to dive into it, or do you want to get into his hunts? I guess.
Oh, while we're talking, we could just go. Yeah.
How about we dive into it, and then we can kind of talk about. Well, he's probably wearing some secret stuff on these hunts. But if you weren't, look, he's smiling. If you weren't, what would you be wearing during these hunts if it's not secret? But let's dive into the whitetail product and kind of start from just the base layer foundation, building that kit, if you will. If you were a Midwestern whitetail guy, what should you be looking into if this is your first experience with Sitka?
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing I would just encourage everybody to do is really focus on setting your foundation. It's just like building a house. So, if you build everything on top of that and you don't build it on a good foundation, no matter what you do, you're going to be fighting an uphill battle. So you're going to be struggling to stay warm. So I really tend to focus on one of two avenues. One would be setting your foundation, and the lightest weight synthetic possibly you can get is what I prefer to do. So just because it's a cold weather hunt, don't think that you shouldn't be putting a lightweight, like a core lightweight top and or bottom on the base of your foundation to be able to build off. And the primary reason for that is moving moisture. That's the only function of that inside of your system. You can also go the merino route. One of my favorite things to wear in the late season is our heavyweight merino. So that's actually got it's like wearing a synthetic and like maybe a heavyweight synthetic on top of that, or a heavyweight, heavyweight merino on top of that. So it's essentially a double knit. So what's towards your body is going to be a lightweight synthetic, and then on top of that, you're going to have a heavyweight 290-gram merino. And the primary purpose is you think of that lightweight synthetic, it's going to hate moisture, the merino is going to love it. And on a heavyweight merino, if you've ever worn heavyweight directly against your skin when it becomes a merino, it can tend to feel a little bit clammy.
Yeah.
And that's the whole reason that we build that layer that way in the heavyweight merino.
I feel like I heard you talk about that with is the guys from Black Orvis. I think yours like a YouTube video. I remember you talking about that, or Black Ovis. I can't remember how they, but it was like a V-lap. Is that what you're referring to? Is that correct?
V-lap is a type of insulation that we use inside of the Fanatic.
Okay. Okay.
You know, it's basically on a profile that's built.
Okay.
Like this.
Okay. Yeah. But I remember you saying that exact same thing. You know, switching up from that synthetic and merino blend, they kind of definitely help those two opposites fight each other. But that's a great tip.
Yeah, it's a great way to put merino in your system. So those, I would say, set your foundation with one of those two.
I think with the foundation, that is huge. With the foundation, that's huge. Like I do the core lightweight with a hoodie and the face mask, and that, especially hiking and you're gonna sweat up.
Yeah.
You're absolutely going to sweat. So that just gets everything for me off my skin.
Oh, I mean,
keeps me comfortable.
I'm only hiking maybe a half mile to the spot to hang and just here locally, and not to mention stuff like so Andrew does a lot of public land hunting as well, so he's a mile plus usually a lot of the time. But yeah, I remember I've heard you say this before, but you would almost just wear that core lightweight or that lightweight next to skin layer, regardless of the temperature, into the stand, because again that moisture management is absolutely critical.
Yeah, I mean, if it's cold outside, I'm going to go as low as I can. I typically commit to my bottom layer, whatever that's going to be in, because I have a harness typically on top of that, or I don't want to wear it into the stand, but I'll vent. Now, if you're going a mile plus, you probably want to roll and pack it all in.
Mm-hmm.
But typically most hunters are going to be walking a few hundred yards to, like a quarter mile. And in those situations, I'm just going to vent and then wear with the lightest top I can possibly stand. Because if you're chilled at the truck, then you're probably okay. Because once you start moving, you're going to generate heat.
Yep.
But if it's like an exceptionally cold morning, then I might add a mid-layer insulated piece. Whatever, I'm not going to sweat by the time I get up into my stand, especially if you're saddle hunting or moving that far. Just climbing, setting stands.
Yep.
Those things can actually make you sweat quite a bit more than you would think.
Oh, especially when you start all three of us are saddle hunters.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out Tethered. But we, carrying, your 4 sticks in your bow, your bag, your snacks, your extra, outer pieces. I mean, just that little 500-600 yard walk that I have. I know, and I try to vent as much as I can, but it's inevitable that you're gonna sweat. I mean, and that's the key. I think we had somebody the other day talking about how our feet were always cold, and we've had Troy Hellman from La Crosse on to talk as well about this, and it's just that moisture management. It starts from your toes all the way up to your head. Getting that sweat off your body is absolutely crucial.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's funny too. I found too, it's like when you're setting up and you're running gunning, you're gonna sweat, but going up in a new tree or any tree, it's never smooth. It's always something happens, and you're like, no matter how calm you were or maybe possibly still chilled before you got to your platform, you've all of a sudden like heated yourself up, and you're like, dang it.
Some type of adrenaline. Yes, some type
Yeah.
of adrenaline or
Yes,
something. Yeah.
It's
There's always that odd branch too with like a lineman's belt that you have to go around and you have to kind of unhook and hang off, and you're like,
yep.
yeah. So all of that typically makes me sweat a little bit, like, especially once you get about 18 feet and you have to navigate some odd fork in the tree, which I love forks. Or some additional piece of vegetation to add some cover for myself.
Oh yeah, that's critical. Or taking the bag and putting it, especially in the fork tree, being able to get your bag off of you and putting it over here, or your bow or whatever, and kind of having that natural spot where you're just not silhouetting yourself as much.
Forks put me to sleep. I just leaned back into them, and then that's when I realized I just fell asleep. Yeah.
So moving on. So next is skin. Moving on, I'm sure it's more of a static insulation material in the middle. What kind of products would you recommend? Andrew's grabbing some of his pile here, but after that next is skin layer, what kind of products are you recommending for people after that?
Yeah, so let's say you've set the foundation with synthetic or heavyweight merino, whatever that is, depending on the temperature. Then I'll either, depending on how cold it is, I prefer a heavyweight zip tee or heavyweight zip tee or half zip, or ambient jacket. There's a lot of people that do like the ambient hoodie, or they like the Fanatic hoodie, and I typically just hate stuff over my ears and over my face. It just bothers me. So there's two options inside of the line. I typically go there, and so that as an example with one of those two mid layers or both of those mid layers, with paired up with every your outerwear. So with that 4-layer system, which would be a heavyweight merino, heavyweight synthetic, ambient jacket, and then my outerwear piece, whichever that may be, which last week for me in Canada, we'll get into that later.
Yeah.
I was hunting a negative 14 degrees, and that 4-layer system is all that I had, and I was totally fine. And I personally hunted that system down to negative 26 and we're hunting 7-hour sits. So if you effectively set up your system, you can go in and really endure some cold weather, long sits, and not look like the Stay Puft. Like I've always talked about, I remember when I was in high school going out, and this is in Alabama. So, I had cotton coveralls on. I look like puffy arms.
Like Christmas Story, Ralphie.
Christmas Story. Yeah. Push my arms and they're coming back up,
Yeah. It was funny. We were talking to Troy from Lacrosse about that same thing, and he was like, and take hunting out of it, like a Friday night football game or, whatever have you as a kid, like you were always cold. It didn't matter what Rocky boots I had on, what lacrosse boots I had on. My feet were always cold. I was always cold. And you go back and it's like I was wearing, cotton long johns, blue jeans, and like a coverall, a Carhartt coverall or something. It's like no wonder I was freezing. Like I was just sitting there puddled in sweat.
Yep.
Yeah. For me, like I'll do the core lightweight, and then I run just to like the heavyweight hoodie.
Yeah.
Yep.
I ran the Fanatic for a while. Just the cuffs were a little tight about my wrists, and so it was just easier for me to run this, especially if I needed to rip it on and off. It was just easier to get on and off.
And that saved you on a hunt.
I don't possibly because I did not look. Yeah, wearing solids, I looked like your regular.
Yeah, we gotta get into the story now, just a little bit. Fast overview. Audience should know if they listen.
Yeah.
But he doesn't. It's
okay. Yeah. So I had switched to the solids. I was hiking in. Basically, I was hunting a public track that you kind of just wanted to blend in. Possibly, you just didn't want people looking at you with a side eye. And I had gotten close to where I needed to set up. It was like I'm going to use the restroom. So I start to take a leak, and as I'm taking a leak, I look up, and the buck I'd been chasing all season is just maybe 8 yards in front of me behind a thicket, just staring at me. And I was like, I blew that. Like that's done. I'll never see him again. And we joked that it was the solids, but like, I think being on the ground, not in camouflage, like I was going to wear a tracksuit this year just to look like a regular jogger, getting into some of these areas, I could have been what saved me. Who knows?
Yeah. So there
So
you go.
were you able to? Did he get up and run off? Or,
No.
When you stopped, or he just stayed?
He let me finish. He stayed. Then he just slowly turned and walked off in the direction he was walking. That's how I was able to seal the deal. The direction he was walking, that allowed me to know with a certain percentage where he was going to be that next morning.
Yeah.
And so it had rained the night before. He walks off. I was able to take off running in a lateral direction to confirm that he was going to cross this ridge, and he did. And the next morning, it was game over.
I'll say, yeah, he saw him pee, and then 24 hours later, he was dead.
Well, I mean, yeah, I spent a lot of time talking with Dr. Carl Miller at UGA. He's a great person to chat with. You know, he's been studying deer, but there's a lot of learned behaviors that they have, and you know, they can feel very comfortable in those thickets. And you know, there's a lot of times you'll walk by, if you see them, you'll just keep, as long as you keep moving,
Mm-hmm.
they just let you go on through. But as soon as you stop and like turn and focus on them, that's when I've seen them definitely run out. So
Oh, yeah.
I remember reading that very young, you know, talking about, you know, getting them and trying not to eye them. So
Yeah.
there's lots of articles.
I'm glad you just said that. I was getting ready to mention, I don't want to segue too much or divert too much here, but what's your take? You just mentioned the deer study on that predator eye, the eyeing them, if you will, or that face to face where you're not looking at them. I feel like sometimes it helps if I see something and I'm busted. I'm trying not to stare at her or him and try to just like maybe direct my side eye to kind of see them out of my peripheral. Have you noticed anything like that?
Well, actually, I try and do this. So if I have a deer, I won't, you know, if I can see them, even if it's one that I want to shoot or even ones that I'm not, I try not like directly turn and face, because they do tend to cue in, I think, on eyes. I think they're naturally have learned that. So, I mean, we were just talking about this. That's one of the things, like where I was hunting last week. It's super exposed. Like everything is super exposed. All the trees are super exposed. There's not a whole lot of coverage. And so I'll tend to try and just look off to the side a little bit and be very tactical in my movements, so that, because I did have one deer, for example, where I was hunting last week, like a 130, 140-ish buck came pushing a doe basically right under my stand, and I wasn't quite sure if the buck was a shooter or not yet, and he wasn't, but just the action of me moving to put my hand onto my bow and giving her a quick look. I mean, I nicknamed that stand Northern Exposure. There's nothing.
Yeah.
It's a tree on the edge of a hedgerow field,
Yeah.
and that's it. There's nothing around you, and there's very little coverage. So I had to be very, very careful. Luckily, she kind of came back around, gave me a hard look, accepted me, and then moved on. And then the buck just literally walked right under my stand at like 6 yards, and he was focused on her.
Yeah.
It was not him I was worried about.
Yeah.
It's her.
Yep.
Because she's looking around, and he had one thing on his
Oh,
mind.
for sure. I just experienced that this weekend. I mean, it ended up being a much, much smaller buck. He was a little forky, but she kind of seen me, but then she was focused on him because he was chasing her or pushing her. And I was like, honey, what are you looking at? Like, I don't see him yet. I could see probably a couple 100 yards. And then nose to the ground, here comes a little spike buck just pushing her. And I was like, oh, yep, that's what it was. I'm like, she winded me and everything, but she didn't care. Like, she put her nose up. And I'm like, nope, she was focused. I'm like, all right, well, something's over there. We'll see what it is. But enough of that talk. Let's get back to
The old doe's the hardest one.
Yep, she blows, she goes. What you had another piece too? Was that the?
So yeah, when he even mentioned it, adding that ambient, that is this year is by far been able to take me from early season into late season. Sometimes not even putting the heavyweight hoodie on. It's lengthened that product range or that comfort level deeper into the season for me.
Yeah, you said you'd almost got rid of a jacket because of it.
Yeah, because I could do the core lightweight, I could run the ambient, and then I was actually able to ditch this and then ditch the Stratus jacket and just do the vest, and that put me into like the low 40s comfortably.
Yeah,
which was huge.
Absolutely,
for me.
and it's fine. Yeah, it's finding something that allows you to like ebb and flow with the conditions, because you're gonna face everything from 80 depending on where you're going, maybe 90 degrees where you're facing temperatures all the way down into, 0 or
below,
freezing conditions. And I always encourage people to look at that system, because you're never going to find one jacket. Like whenever people ask me, what's the one jacket that's going to get me to the whole season? And you have to kind of like stop and say, shift your paradigm and start to think about how you're going to build a system that allows you to be able, not only within a single hunt, but throughout the entire season, manage those properties. So look at your, coldest days to your warmest days, and then I try and typically build systems for people that are going to give them the most comfort in those time periods. So, you were talking about the ambient. The great thing about ambient is that's an active insulation. So there's two products currently in the ambient line. One is the hoodie. That was my counterpart, John Barklow's development, who works on the big game line. It's a very lightweight ambient, so it's a lighter insulation. The ambient jacket is my development that I did, and that one has 155 grams. So since most whitetail hunters don't want more than one hood, and we have some other hoods in the system, a lot of people were looking for that one because it balances the need for some active insulation during the setups. That's what I wore when I was in -14 in Canada last week. The lightweight base layer or the heavyweight, merino, that ambient jacket is what I used for my setup, and then I added my outerwear on top of that. So if it was really, really warm, I would just go in with like a lighter weight product.
All right, that's cool. That's sweet.
And the ambient's quiet. I think that's one thing that I was super excited about, that it was actually very quiet. Almost like the Celsius MIDI, but just more range for me than the Celsius MIDI.
That's cool. Yeah, and then
it's more durable too. So I spent a lot of time trying to find, I probably went like to a bunch of different textiles and testing those in the GORE noise analyzer and those types of things. So that textile really balanced the need. It improved the pilling over the Celsius MIDI that some people would experience with abrasion. That particular face is, very, very quiet, and also balances the need, because there's always a trade-off. The more durable a textile typically gets, the noisier it gets.
Sure.
And that one actually found a great sweet spot in, I would say very, very quiet and acceptable durability. Not a brush busting jacket. I don't want to say like go put your back into a greenbrier thicket and shove through. But you're not going to have any abrasion from packs and things like that.
You will feel the greenbriers.
Yeah. He's like,
you'll feel it.
That's awesome. No, and I should mention too, that's a new jacket for this year, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I believe we carry that one as well. I believe that's one that we do have on the shelf as well. We have that, and then new for this year too, the Traverse as well.
Yeah, we have the jacket, not the hoodie, in the ambient.
Yes.
I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's the right choice.
Yeah. yeah, no doubt. Yeah, like you said though, and it's a real thing. You start getting every piece having a hood. It gets to a point where it's a little bit cumbersome, especially if you're having face mask. Because, you get piles of face masks behind you on the back of your neck. You really only need that lightweight with the hood and the face mask, and they let everything else just kind of be what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the GORE lightweight has a built-in face mask.
Yeah.
And then it was easier for me to get rid of the Fanatic and just go to a heavyweight, like grid fleece, just because it does still, if you zip it all the way up, I mean, you're really just exposing your eyes, maybe the bridge of your nose. So you do have that option, but I love the warmth around my neck.
Yeah.
But I didn't necessarily need another face mask. And I'm not a beanie guy, so I do just I drop everything. So I have to make sure I have multiple hoods to extend my season.
He's out there with the Fanatic scarf and the Fanatic beanie. Like, don't let him lie to you. No. So moving on, we're probably at this point we're kind of getting into some of the outerwear stuff. So I'm assuming the Stratus is probably next in your lineup for the wind blocking.
Yeah. So I consider the Stratus the most versatile piece of. So if you're setting all of those base layers and insulation layers, the wonderful thing about the Stratus, like say in an earlier season, and you're just looking to cut the wind, you could just add that over a core lightweight or just those, insulation. Or you could add those other two insulation pieces under it, but you really only need 4 pieces in a kit to basically be able to get you through cold weather hunts, depending on what that is, and the lowest temperature that you're going in. But the wonderful thing about the Stratus is, like, I could take that heavyweight hoodie, I could take that heavyweight zip tee, I could take that ambient jacket, and I could take the Stratus, and I'm getting down into the early morning teens, starting a hunt and being able to shed and get up into the 40s or 50s for a day. There's a lot of mornings where you're starting out and it's in the teens, but then you want to be able to adjust as that temperature, and so you can shed those layers or add those layers as the sun sets. And that's a great system, I would say, like, for 90% of you out there. If you had those 4 layers in your kit, you're gonna get where you need to be able to get for the vast ranges of your hunts.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's a great piece, man. It's not too heavy either. It's pretty light.
No, it's pretty light. It's very durable.
Fleece material on the outside for quiet.
Absolutely. Yep. It has.
And then if you
great
take a look at the
organization.
hood,
It's off.
if you take a look at the hood on that.
He zipped it off. But I know where you're getting ready to get at too, with the ear.
Yeah, I'm in the same spot. So I hate to wear anything over my ears. I typically hate to wear hoods. And so when we started looking at our beanie developments for, multiple lines and our headwear pieces for multiple lines, there's a lot that happens once you start to cover. Not only do you lose the ability, like, for your ears to be able to accept that sound, but you also lose some directional ability that goes along, like, where is it coming from? Because, your mind has to be able to process that. So what we did with those hoods, it's on the Stratus beanie, it's on the Fanatic beanie as well. I actually collected a bunch of dirt and leaves from UGA. We came back, we simulated deer hoof, we put that into a frequency setting. I worked with James Black here at the University of Montana. We went into a sound studio and we started taking those and putting a bunch of different hoods to be able to basically to be able to understand what was going on with the sound properties. And then GORE has this instrument. It's basically a head and neck with simulated human ears on it. So a lot of people don't know this, that GORE is used, or Gore-Tex type, laminates are used in a lot of things like headlights, heart stents, phones. The reason you can drop your phone in the water and it doesn't now go bad like in the old days, like, you're not going to ruin all the internal mechanisms inside it, is because there's actually a GORE membrane that basically allows moisture. So think about this: your phone or your car headlights heat up as they're working. They have to let moisture escape due to condensation that can happen inside of those electronics. So there's a whole team at GORE that's actually built around end user hearing. So they have this head and torso simulator. His name is Mr. Hat, so head and torso simulator.
That's awesome.
That's engineering humor for you. And so we would put different hoods and different textiles and insulation packages on that, and we would be able to measure what was happening. It's called insertion loss, and be able to understand. So the Stratus hood, for example, allows you to hear up to 4 times as far as a traditional hood without that setup.
That's awesome.
Or 3 times as loud at the same distance. So that means maybe 20 yards versus 80 yards distance, or at 20 yards, it's going to be 3 times as loud. So I can basically pick up where is it, what is it, types of sound properties in my brain, and be able to establish that quicker, all by wearing a beanie and a hood. So it allows me to keep my ears warm, but not lose my ability to be a more effective hunter.
Oh, for sure.
I think
Did you know that?
I did know that.
You did?
I did, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was hopeful you were going to drop something on him.
That one was no. I looked. Another key feature with that hood on the Stratus is it's cut back
For your peripheral.
You still have a full peripheral.
Yeah.
So I don't run the hood on that, but a few times that I did, it is a very well thought out hood.
Yeah.
And it just works really well.
It's interesting. A lot of companies are starting to switch to that peripheral vision as well too, and I think it's absolutely vital. To be able to. I mean, that's where you're, as a hunter, that's where you're primarily. You see a lot of that movement first on the side. You're not going to see it directly in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
You'd laugh too, because we use the lab setting to be able to test a lot of what we do. But I remember I was in Ohio hunting, when we were field testing that, and I had like 5 different hoods with me and 5 different constructions. And when like squirrels are rustling on the ground, it was like put another hood on, because you're trying to validate what you're seeing in the lab in the field. So you just basically you'd be laughing, but I was just walking around or sitting in the tree stand, just switching out hoods, trying to listen for squirrels because they're constantly running around. So they're a great gauge for like where is it type of noises.
Oh, for sure. And it never fails. When you do hear a noise, that is exactly what it is.
Well, it's because the squirrels in Ohio are 220 pounds.
So there's some big ones, man. I bet you I could have bagged out at least 5 or 6 days this year. Like easily got my limit. So no, that's awesome, man. I knew we were going to get deep, but I didn't know we were going to get Mr. Hats deep today. Yeah. So that's pretty sweet. I mean, I knew the GORE technology definitely takes you guys to a whole nother level, and I think that's clear now for sure. So. All right, everyone, we need to take a quick break from the conversation to thank our show sponsor, Toby Burdett, with Burdett Taxidermy and Legends Big Game Recovery. As we mentioned several times on the show, when it comes to whitetail hunting, bad shots just happen. If you're in Ohio or the surrounding states and you find yourself in a situation where you need help tracking, give Toby a call at 740-281-6435. All right, everyone, I hope you're enjoying the conversation so far. And look, we get it. Premium hunting apparel can be expensive. We're very fortunate that our friends at Sitka have decided to partner with us to help you get started on building a bomb-proof whitetail kit by giving away a Stratus Jacket. The winner will be drawn on Monday, December 12th, and will be notified via email as well as posted on our social channels. It's really simple to enter the giveaway. All you have to do is visit the link in the episode show notes or head over to any of our social media accounts, enter your name, your email, follow our accounts, and hit enter, and you're good to go. Thanks, everyone, and good luck.
Another thing with the Stratus Jacket is safety. There's like a huge safety built into the Stratus Jacket of a lot of guys who hang and hunt or have even a climber or those platform stands. They're using that full body harness, and so they have that tether coming off the back of their shoulder blades, and that is a huge point of contention of like, if I want to take my jacket off or put it on, you gotta unhook from the tree. So that's not ideal, but they took care of that problem with in the collar. It just pops open, allows you to put the jacket on, feed the tether through, and then re-snap that closed.
Such a simple thing, but it makes such a big difference.
Very simple, huge difference.
And I think that probably goes to how much field testing went into that.
A lot. It took a while to get right, so I actually have a patent on that. So that setup was because I know somebody that actually fell out of a tree stand and spent like 6 months in traction because he broke his neck. Oh, so for me, it was like that. I think because I actually, before that instance, I kind of just treated it a little bit casually. I would scale a tree, get in the ladder stand, no safety harness. I just didn't think that way. And all of a sudden I was like, dang, that could have been me, and then my kids all of a sudden, lose a parent, all that type of stuff. So for me, it was really important because typically I think when you're there's a couple of points that people tend to fall out of tree stands. One's getting in and out. The other time is a lot of times when you're layering, there's things going on. You're like kind of putting on things, hoods, dealing with tethers, and sometimes you might have a tendency, especially on these smaller like Novik style or Lone Wolf style tree stands, step off the platform by accident. And that's all it takes is just one mistake when you're cold and tired and 5 days into your hunt and you're not mentally all there.
Yeah.
That's when it can happen.
Yeah, even as a saddle hunter, I'm switching my jacket out, but I don't want to have my coat over top of my saddle, like just for the access of my bags, my pouches and stuff. And it's like, okay, I'm going to slip it down a little bit, but still try to keep it tight. It's kind of an issue.
So you run yours like a fanny pack. That's cute.
Well, yeah, it was pretty low. It gets down to the bottom of my legs sometimes. But I'm thinking to myself, a tethered standard Predator platform is smaller than any other micro stand on the market. It's very small. I'm wearing an 11 size boot and I'm end to end on it. Right. It would take just one instance for me just to slip off that in a weird spot with that on me, and it would be, it'd be over. And so, and it happens fast. We've had coworkers here whose dads have fallen out of trees just, taking ladder stands down and stuff, and you know, luckily he was okay, but that ruined a whole trip for them.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, like, you know, they had a trip planned in Nebraska for mule deer and then gone, like, because now he's in traction or now has broken ribs. And so it's the tree stand safety is huge, and that's where you had told me that before about your coat being able to do that, and I think that's critical.
Yeah, that's one of the best. When it was a couple of years ago when it came out, the older ones don't have that, and it was huge, and the Fanatic jacket as well has that.
Yeah, so that's a good segue too. So after the Stratus, you're probably going into the Fanatic system.
Yeah, and the one thing I would say is, like, let's say you have that system right now, like with your base layer, your 2 insulation pieces, and your Stratus jacket. There's actually one piece you can add to your kit to get really into cold weather hunts, and that's the Fanatic vest. So if you have that set up, and say you're not going to buy a whole nother jacket, or, you know, and you're not super cold natured, a lot of times I'll just add the Fanatic vest that allows me to also yin and yang with that system, and it gives you the built-in hand muff inside of there, but you're going to add something over your core. That's actually been a favorite piece of mine, and that's a system that actually allows me to get in super cold teens, single digits, in most cases, maybe not full all day sits, and you know, in 10 degrees or something along those lines, but I can get really just adding that Fanatic vest onto my Stratus jacket. It's really quite nice to have that hand muff built in without having to pack an additional hand muff.
Oh, for sure.
Another vest guy.
Another vest guy. Yeah, he likes the vest because it makes him a ninja.
Yeah, you can still fight.
Yeah.
But I mean, the dexterity in your arms, and we're talking about Fanatics. So I think, I mean, this would be the perfect segue for that too, because that jacket is kind of tailored towards the bow hunter, if I'm not mistaken. And so
tapered sleeves.
Yeah, the tapered sleeves, and, you know, the material on if it's a left-handed and right-handed jacket. I don't own one, so I'm trying to go off memory, but the left arm has a different material for the
the Berber's not on it. It just
Berber
goes to a tight knit style fabric.
Yeah, if you look at the Fanatic jacket setup, so whatever your grip arm is that you can reach out with your bow. So if you're righty, you know, a right eye dominant archer, that's going to be your left hand. You're going to reach out. There's no textile on the inside. No Berber textile. It's basically mapped out so that you have string clearance. But also, if you're a gun hunter or even an archer, you're gonna come to full draw. You're going to be back on your trigger. You're going to see on your right arm or on your trigger arm for either archers or firearms hunters, you're going to see no Berber on the inside of the cuff or inside of the elbow here, and that's basically just to remove a setup. And then if you're lefty, everything is flipped, and the reason for that cross zip on the jacket is so that you have the built-in hand muff, but don't have to carry an extra hand muff into the field. The only thing that's different on the lefty jacket essentially is the constant connect always sits on the user's left side of their neck.
Okay.
That way, if there's additional systems with that, they come out right. They're alternating.
So that constant connect system is on there as well, the same as what we were just talking about with the Stratus. Okay.
Yeah.
He's got his here.
I think another great feature of the Fanatic, not only do you get the muff, but you get your grunt tube holder. You get a rangefinder pocket, and then in like your kangaroo pouch, you can either throw hand warmers in, or that's where you can drop a cell phone, or it's actually small enough because I only do
Captain Crunch bars.
Absolutely. Actually, sometimes that will go in the grunt tube holder. my extra snack.
His Captain Crunch bars.
But you can throw your binos down in there too. Like when you're late season, you're always bulked up.
Sure.
And so just with all your layers at this point, running a bino harness, it's not as ideal. And so it's like this, having the vest or the jacket allows me to run this jacket like a piece of gear.
Yeah.
And that's just how it works as a piece of gear, and allows me to be comfortable and agile still.
Well, sure, and it's less things to have in the
You'll
tree.
laugh when you'll laugh. The reason that little mesh internal pocket is I was on one of those very, very negative temperature hunts in Alberta, and I had a chemical hand warmer inside the muff, and I didn't have that on the earlier prototype. I pulled my hand out and it stuck to my finger, and at the very beginning of the set, and I was like, dang it. So not only did I drop this like, sweaty thing down on the
Yeah.
ground because I've been holding it, but I also lost that additional heat that I could throw into the mouth. So, which is nice. Like the reason that kind of comes into play is like if you've ever, if you're setting stands like we do and you're touching metal objects all the time, would not believe how quickly your hands turn into two clubs on the end of your finger, on the end of your arms.
Yep.
And so just being able to put your fingers on that to repeat them a little bit more quickly is nice, because you do need dexterity. It's almost, it's impossible without having good dexterity to like put on to hang a tree stand. You're not going to do that in a heavy glove or a mitt, and you're certainly not going to do it Jim hold quiet in the
No.
And I think that muff also allows you to run a very thin glove
Yes.
and then get into cold temperatures comfortably.
Yeah, which I would prefer, honestly, just from that dexterity standpoint too. Like, having your bow, it's like I run the like a merino with the fingerless tips. I mean, he's got some here, but I have just basic merino gloves that have all my fingers exposed on the very tip, and that's just to, when it does come time, you pull them out, and then you're ready to go. And I think having that built in, it's one less piece that you have to grab. You're not going out and purchasing another hand muff, and then you have everything like he said right there.
It's clean and tidy.
Yep. Yeah, and if you're hunting up there with Jim, you're going to be as clean and tidy and as silent as you possibly can.
Yep, hands on the heat.
You're not going out.
Hands on the heat. Yeah, hands on the heat.
Yep, that's what he said. So yeah, and then incinerator flip net is a great piece. So a lot of times when it's that cold on my bow hanger, I'll reach up, put my incinerator flip net hand on the bow, and just leave it on the hanger or set it into the bow, like into that pocket piece or something like that, depending on where the deer is and I'm sitting. But my right hand, like you said, it's just maybe a Fanatic glove or a merino liner glove, or the two paired together, so it's as light as possible. Leave that on the heat until the very last moment, because it doesn't take long for those to freeze up pretty quick.
Oh no, especially hunting negative 20 degrees or whatever. Yeah,
It happens quick.
Yeah, oh for sure. And so that, I mean, you're setting us up here too. Wait, this is something I don't really know too much about, but let's get into that incinerator. That incinerator jack, I know that's a pretty clutch piece as well, especially when it gets super super cold.
Yeah, so I would say, like, if you're getting into those really frigid hunts, there's really two paths to go in, like the totally focused cold weather, pieces that actually have built-in insulation into them, plus, a windstopper or a Gore-Tex shell. One is the Fanatic. If you're somebody that really cares about being quiet, maybe you're always going to be hunting in the snow, not super wet, or you have access to a dryer, the Fanatic is a great piece for that. However, if you're somebody that's going to be hunting in really, really wet conditions, or you guys get this in Ohio, and even like if you're going down into Kentucky, which isn't that far away, let's say 35 degrees and all day raining.
Yes.
Those conditions are probably some of the most miserable conditions that you can ever face as a hunter. And so the incinerator is built basically with lofted insulation with a Gore-Tex shell. So that allows you to hunt in kind of like wetter conditions, wet snow, wet misting rain, sleet, those types of things. If more of your days are facing those types of conditions, I would say go incinerator over Fanatic. The Fanatic is the warmest piece we make. It's the quietest piece we make. But in order to make it ultra quiet, you do give up the waterproof aspect of that, and that's where the incinerator. So it allows you to pick which is right for me between the incinerator and the Fanatic.
Yeah, we just had conditions like that last weekend. And I mean, that would have been an awesome opportunity to have a jacket like that.
Does the incinerator still have a quiet face, like the in the Gore-Tex?
It is a brush, so it is going to be quieter. So if you go like, you look at like that, or Blizzard or Boreal or like Polar Bear or Waterfowl, those types of ones, those faces are exceptionally durable, but they're going to be way noisier. The incinerator allows a lot of those quiet properties with a Gore-Tex shell, just because of the type of face that we're using, with a brush knit onto bonded Gore-Tex membrane. That's the difference between those. So I would consider that one still quiet. It's just not the ultra quiet that Fanatic is, and it's fine for a lot of. I mean, it's great for a lot of those things to be able to hunt.
That's awesome. That's the whole line, guys. We want to dive into, one thing that
some bottoms.
Yeah, we could go bottoms too. Yeah, let's go bottom because I know like he said, he's committing to whatever bottom he's using for that day. Let's start with let's go back in time here. Let's go back to early season. Just what kind of pant or bottom that you're wearing, maybe into that rut phase. Maybe you're picking up like a Stratus bib or something like that, and then going in further.
Yeah, so there's like 3 traditional pants inside of the Whitetail line. One is basically, a traverse pant. That's a great, like, I'm just getting into Sitka. I want a really good pant.
Yep.
That's what the traverse pant. It's got some zip cargo pockets, all the basic features that you need for a pant. The next one is the Equinox pant. So that one's built with larger cargo pockets. So I love my lineman's rope into those because it stays on my harness all the time.
Okay.
And so I've stuffed that in there, or my tree strap. So larger cargo pockets. It also has a waterproof seat. So if you are setting, this happens every once in a while. I'll wind up in ladder stands that my buddy is like, hey, come hunt with me. And it's the ladder stand with a padded seat. And then you climb up there in the dark, sit down, and you're like, gosh, soaking wet.
Yep.
Now my butt's wet for the next 4 hours. So that's why that has a waterproof seat on it. And then the last one is Equinox Guard. This one, this is something that you face more and more often. Ticks, chiggers. Ticks are a major problem. I think almost everybody I know knows somebody or had like a tick-borne illness. That whole design of that line is to prevent you from ever contacting ticks or from bringing them home and putting them in your laundry room hamper in your bedroom.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And then your wife is yelling at you because you find one in your daughter's hair. Yeah, I don't know from experience at all. Nope, not at all. No, but that system is pretty clutch too because we experienced it here. We had a warm rut. I don't know kind of how you were too, but that first few days or week, if you will, of rut, I know, heck, you were still using a thermocell. Mm-hmm. And it was like the end of October, beginning of November, and it's like you could still use that Equinox Guard for the mosquitoes and stuff because like they're still out.
Mm-hmm. The Equinox,
and you can always layer under it for a little insulation. So.
That's exactly what I was going to say. There's still room in it too. You can run it early season, and it's not your coolest pant, but like it's definitely abrasion resistant to a decent point. So it's just a good thing of protection.
Yeah.
But then you can also layer under that and get you back into the upper 30s pretty easily.
What kind of temperatures are you switching from like a core lightweight into the heavyweight bottom? Like I mean, this is personal preference, but at what point are you kind of switching from those bottoms?
I would say once the temperatures are getting in the 40s in the morning, and that's about as low as I'll put the heavyweight bottom or heavyweight bottom on, and then just a pant. Like I can do like upper 40s and 50s. My legs don't get that cold.
Yeah.
Or depending on what that is, if I'm going to be doing, I might just do a pant and then that Stratus bib fully vented is kind of where I go. I typically like to go with the bib because I can do a full venting and I can go anything from a core lightweight under it, base layer, a pant under it of my choice, lightweight base layer or a heavyweight base layer and a pant, and that. Like like I said, that whole system allows me to get into, into the 20s. If I'm going to go sub cold, I'll typically go to our Equinox MIDI. When I'm getting in those really low temperatures where I need maybe want a little bit more insulation on my legs. But I mean, just basically a heavyweight base layer or a lightweight base layer and a pant and a Stratus bib, and you basically are going to get 99% of your days or 95% of your days.
So kind of switching gears here, I think one thing that I'd like to learn more about is just the digital design, if you will, the Sitka design for the camo. I know with the Whitetail line, it's kind of stands out uniquely in that field. It's different than anyone else's. I know there was some science behind just the deer biology and how they're seeing colors and how they're seeing light. How can you explain that to us a little bit more? Just kind of the design pattern of the Sitka EV2 line.
Yeah. So I mean, when you take a look at like EV2, what it was really developed is from the animal's point of view. So usually deer looking up into a hunter in a tree stand, trying to figure them out. And just like we talked about earlier, that doe,
Yep.
it like if anyone says like there's any concealment pattern that's fully gonna like make you invisible at all points, they're lying to you. And the point is, like, if that doe with the buck chasing her is going to give you a hard look, the point is for her to say, I accept that and I can't see, because they have like a 20/60 vision. They don't have the same clarity of vision. So if you take a look at their, like the way that their internal eye is structured, ours is like at a single focal point. Theirs is actually a horizontal thing. So the way they see the world is like 280 or 300 degrees wrapped around their head. They have the ability to process motion way faster than we do. There's a lot, like the way that Dr. Carl has explained it to me is they're kind of like almost seeing the world going by them. You're like, there's a tree, there's a branch, there's this. And you're like, they're kind of like watching the whole world run by at the same time. So they're giving up some, and to be able to get that night vision that they have, or their ability to be able to see at night, they're giving up some clarity in order to have that around, or that surround view that they have of the world. So essentially, if you've ever seen a deer like duck its head and like look at you and move your head and move its head side to side, trying to figure out, they're trying to actually move you across that. They're trying to gain clarity of vision.
I didn't know that. That's
so
cool.
by using the micros and macro patterns, you're basically breaking up that outline with the proper environment to allow them to basically be able to accept you or not perceive you as a threat. That's the whole premise of concealment as it is set up.
That's cool. Yeah, I knew that they had some crazy vision stuff. I think it was like they can see like 18 or 20 times better than what we can at night. So you're always wondering, like, why? How does a deer know that mineral site is right there when it's like pitch black? It's like, well, they can see so much better than us, you know?
Well, as I was going to ask, in those studies, did it show if a deer could see better at night or daylight?
Oh, yeah.
Because I feel personally that I've gotten busted more at gray light at night, wrestling around setting up.
I could see that.
And getting stared down more in those gray light times than a daylight time.
There's probably some information, and I would defer to Dr. Carl typically on that. So I might give bad information. I have seen some of those, and there's enhanced, like, you know, the spectrum changes as that sun sets. So there's different types of lights that become more prevalent. So and the fact that they're now utilizing those rods in their eyes. So, you know, they're going to be able to see things way different than we are. It's almost like we try and like put ourselves into deer vision. I would love to have deer goggles. Unfortunately, I don't think that your brain could even process the world that they're seeing. Like, you might be able to get a snapshot of it, but the fact that they can process things that are moving faster than we can, I don't even think you'd be able to fully get a full picture of it.
Yeah, that's wild, man.
It'll blow your mind when you start trying to think that it's a rabbit hole.
It goes a lot deeper than just colors, you know, and I think that's the important takeaway. It's just not switching that filter to black and white, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like it goes a lot deeper than that, and I would love to have a conversation with him about it, because I think it would absolutely just blow our minds. Mm-hmm. So, well, I know you're coming off of a hot trip. Hot is not the right word. A very cold trip to Alberta, as well as, I think when we first talked, you were in Missouri doing some hunting. I'm sure you're out doing a lot of testing and stuff. How has your season gone so far? Out there testing, and then, have you been able to harvest some hard antlers, or what's that looking like so far?
So for this year, I've been fortunate. I was able to take an elk in early season here in Montana. Went out with my son. We both filled our pronghorn tags. So,
awesome.
So that was a lot of fun. It was great. That was the first time he got to break down an antelope in the field, load it up, pack the whole thing out, which was tons of fun. You know, he's crawling. We are on the ground, and then we turn around. And he's like, "Dad, I want you to take that one." I'm like, "No, this sucker is within 150 yards. Like, this one you're taking." So it was great to be able to have him take his second antelope buck, but actually be able to, do it on public land was a lot of fun.
How old is he?
He is 14.
14. Okay, yeah, cool. Yeah, that's perfect, man.
Yeah.
That sounds like a blast.
Oh, the kid is obsessed. If you ask him, like, hey, what's the biggest deer shot in road? He's committed them all to memory.
Yeah,
He's memorized the Boone and Crockett book, pretty
that
much.
is awesome.
So, yeah, he has a special mind. I don't think I could do that, but yeah, he'll know the date, who shot it, and how much, and what the antler size was. So he's really focused on this. He reads constantly. Every time I turn around, he's got a new magazine in his hand, reading about deer, and
That's awesome.
yeah, trying to figure this out.
That apple didn't fall probably too
yeah.
far from the tree there. I mean, his dad probably didn't set him up influential at all. There was no influence from dad there at all.
Those would turn into be cool, like, remember the baseball cards that has the facts on them and stuff, like
Oh,
the
yeah.
tops? If they did that with like the Boone and Crockett
That
bucks,
would be
of
cool.
putting a picture on it, and then the backside of it has date, time, weight, score. That would be a cool like little gift pack, actually.
Yeah.
If only people would pay the same amount of money that they are for those little baseball cards too.
Yeah.
Money flowing around for that is crazy. So, well, no, yeah. So you've had some good success. I know, like I said, we were in Missouri and then Alberta. I mean, you froze your tail off there in Alberta. I know we joked about your story, your guys' experience there with the airline and getting up there. He's smiling because he's probably. It's funny to us. It's probably miserable for him. But we have to let the audience know what you were shooting with. I mean, you're in the mecca of the biggest whitetail probably in the world. What was Chris using when he was up there?
So just the story behind it is I was on the way up there, and I flew Delta up and they were transferring to WestJet. Well, WestJet's whole computer system went down. So if you've ever seen like an airline, not only with a big storm coming in, but their whole computer system, like I saw 3 baggage guys like in a full-on argument below our plane. Like one guy was just dog cussing the other one. And I texted my guys and I was like, no way my bags are making it today, just so you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, I get on the plane. I was trying to see if I could watch my bags go on. I waited to the 10th minute to get onto the plane. Didn't see them go on. Obviously get there. Line's like 40 deep. Nobody's got the rags. And so I'm there on this great hunt, and I have no cold weather gear, no footwear, no archery equipment. So I literally show up with like what I had on my back and my computer. And Jim Holt Jr.'s brother, Dudley, let me borrow, who's bigger than I am. I'm a $165. He is, a lot larger family units in their family. So I'm buying his 2 size too big bibs, Jim Holt Jr.'s footwear. And then Jim he loves to shoot a really small bow. This actually works. You'll see this, but he shoots a Mission Craze. Like all of his bows are set up on a Mission Craze. He actually, and this is a real deal because they back the poundage off a whole bunch, because he sees these people that come up there, they think I'm just going to pull what I pull normally in these conditions, and this happens like countless times. They go to draw and they can't get it back. So they got this deer of a lifetime under them, and they can't draw their bow. And their draw length is too long, so they get string slap, all those different things. So he shortens all of his draw lengths by about 2 inches. So I'm shooting a 26-inch draw length on the Mission Craze, and it was actually pretty nice. But he shoots no peep up there, so I had to relearn how to shoot without a peep. So we wound up actually going really old school, and I hockey taped a pisser button onto my string and tied it in. It was the only way I could figure out how to get my elevations right. Otherwise, I was just shooting, But I became very effective once I got that system set up.
So are you switching now? You're going all these elk hunts and stuff you're going on. You just take that Mission Craze, no peep, you'll be good to go.
I think I'll have my cold weather bow and my warm weather bow.
I mean, you're like the product guy. You had that system probably absolutely dialed for up there, and you get up there and just burn it all, just throw it all away. Like, let's start from scratch.
Yeah, it was actually pretty difficult, and it may have caused. So I had that same order that doe and that other deer came out. I had a 170 plus class deer come out, and he should be working the hedgerow down to me, but he doesn't. There's like a mound in the middle of this ag field, And for whatever reason, they either like run the hedgerow or they pick back that visual spot in the field that they have to walk to. He walked around the backside of that mound at 120 yards, but my grunt tubes, all of my calls were not there. So all I could do was just sit there and watch it.
Oh.
There was nothing I could do to deter him. So that was a bit heartbreaking.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I couldn't imagine. Well, hopefully you get back up there, and I'm sure you will, and actually put something together and have the kit needed that you need to get. So I think that's all I have for him, man. I know he's just he's got other meetings and other important stuff to do. So we'll let you get going. I really do appreciate your time. I mean, it was pretty enlightening, I could say. I mean, everyone, I know I learned something today. I know you're going to take that knowledge and you'll be thinking about what he has to say in the trees.
Yeah.
So
I think the best thing that could happen is if the Equinox pants had knee pads. That would be my 2 cents.
I'll give you his cell phone. He'll be glad to text you ideas. He's like, dude, I've been working on that for 3 years.
Yeah, it needs knee pads. And then in your beanies, you need to put a magnet in there because my pull rope is a hook because I drop things all the time. I would wear a beanie if I could drop the pull rope and just have the magnet grab the pull rope and then pull it back out.
Oh, to bring it back up?
Yeah.
I took my phone out of my stand.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Well, if you see that in like 3 years, then you know. We have the recorded royalties. Just putting it out there.
It'd be excited to see it.
Awesome. Well, Chris, man, thank you so much for your time. I'm sure we'll stay connected, and hopefully we can talk some turkeys with you here coming up when the weather's a little bit nicer. And good luck with everything you got the rest of the season. We appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, I would love to do that this spring.
Awesome.
And good luck to everyone out this season.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right, everyone, that is all we have for you today. We hope you enjoyed that conversation with Chris. And thanks to Andrew for coming over as well and bringing his gear with him so we can take a look. It was super cool learning about all their lineup and the testing and technology that goes behind the pieces. Also, be sure to head over to the link in our show notes or any of our social media channels and enter our Sitka giveaway. As always, we appreciate you listening. And until next time, enjoy the pursuit.